Welcome back. You're watching Money, 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 and this week we are analysing some of the country's biggest mid-cap funds and whether they should find a place in your MF portfolio. Feroz, we've discussed the top three funds, the HDFC Midcap, the Reliance Growth, the Franklin India Prima. Let's talk about number 4, the Sundaram Midcap Fund, managed by Mr. Krishna Kumar. Again, if I look at from a returns point of view, then 5-year returns, 26% doesn't sound bad. But what are the other criteria, the other parameters that you're looking at to evaluate this?
Sure. A return, it doesn't look too bad. It's done well. It has about 67 stocks in its portfolio, has 28% again in the top 10 stocks. Risk-wise, standard deviation as they call it, higher the number, the bad it is. This is 17 relative to the other 3 funds which we just now spoke of. This is the highest amongst them.
Okay.
It tells you more sporadicity in returns.
So returns could be wavering. Good years, very good. Bad years, it could really lag behind.
Correct. That's what a higher number of standard deviation actually means. As the name says, deviation. If you're expecting something and if there's a deviation.
Sure.
So then coming to drawdown is 19.66. On the risk parameter, doesn't score too well.
Okay.
On the size, of course, it's a very large fund. It's the 4th largest fund.
Okay. And on some of the other parameters that you're looking at?
On the other parameters, I would say the right to wrong ratio isn't too good.
Okay.
Then comes the valuation parameters.
Okay.
The stocks which they've bought have a higher PE.
Okay.
So the average PE by which I mean the price you pay for the earnings you get, is 31. So that's on the higher side relative to other mid-cap funds as well.
That's interesting. What have been the average PEs for some of these funds that we've discussed? Because especially 2017 was a blockbuster year. Prices were just going through the roof. So the Sundaram Midcap, that continues to be sort of the more expensive of the lot?
Yes.
Okay.
So like you, Surobi, a very, very valid question on behalf of the investors and the viewers, that the mid-cap space went through such a correction because it went far ahead than the fundamentals permitted. So in the mid-cap space, generally there is higher PE. Companies are valued more than they deserve today. And Sundaram on that side has a 10% more. So average PE of the other 3 funds which we discussed was 28. This is at 31. So you have to be more careful, and that marries with the same thing which we just said. Risks are higher because you're buying more expensive stocks.
Sure, the correction can also be then that much more severe as and when it happens. I'm guessing you wouldn't, recommend to subscribe to this. I get that feeling.
Yes, yes. Okay. On the mid-cap space, I would ask you to stick to the largest fund houses. Okay. Not going down to the 10th or the 12th fund house. Okay,
and then we come down to the DSP BlackRock Midcap Fund. Mr. Vineet Sambre, I think, is a well-known name. Their micro-cap fund, actually, which is now called the small-cap fund, I think that's been the hallmark fund for a lot of investors who managed to get in. But how is the mid-cap fund from their stable?
The mid-cap fund is okay, not very good. It's, of course, the 5th largest fund. Vineet Sambre has been managing it not for far too long, from 2015. What happens is, ideally when you're managing 2 funds, and if you're a mid-cap fund manager or a small-cap fund manager, you might be managing 2-3 funds, but your ideas are limited. So I wouldn't subscribe to this fund, not because I don't trust the fund manager, but I don't see there are too many fresh ideas which have been brought in from 2015 after Vineet has taken over the portfolio. And
on some of the parameters, particularly its risk profile, how does this fare?
Risk profile is standard deviation, again technical. It's the higher the number, the worse off it is. It is at 17. Okay, just to give a benchmark to clients, to look at it relatively, Nifty is at 11. If you compare it with other mid-cap fund managers, like HDFC Midcap had 14, this has 17. So it's a little more riskier than the HDFC Midcap opportunities as well. On the valuation parameter, they're fairly okay, 28 PE.
Okay, so mixed bag when it comes to the DSP BlackRock Midcap Fund. That brings me to the last question. In the current environment, market continuing to be in a flux, which are the top mid-cap funds that should find place in a person's portfolio?
So I personally believe that if you have a good fund manager with a small fund, it's a very good combination. Okay, Canara Robeco Emerging Equities is a good mid-cap fund in my opinion, because I think that they have ideas. They don't have such large sizes. Mid-cap the optimal size for a fund in the mid-cap space, in my opinion. Of course, HDFC Midcap Bard and of course Franklin Prima Fund, we're still giving them that benefit of doubt that they have shown capability. I would look at Canara Arabico Emerging Equities, a small fund from a future large fund perspective.
Absolutely. Points definitely worth keeping in mind. Thank you very much, Feroz, for joining in and helping us with all of that analysis. Should be quite useful for our viewers.
Thank you, sir.
Well, that's it on this week's edition of Money, Money, Money. Your feedback, comments, queries, welcome as always. We'll see you again next week.